keep a close watch on every one who came and went. When all was quiet at the lodge, when no footsteps were heard on the road, and the game keeper was working in his garden, Karr would amuse himself playing with the baby elk. At first the dog had no desire to leave his master even for a moment. Since he accompanied him everywhere, he went with him to the cowshed. When he gave the elk calf its milk, the dog would sit outside the stall and gaze at it. The game keeper called the calf Greyskin because he thought it did not merit a prettier name, and Karr agreed with him on that point. Every time the dog looked at it, he thought that he had never seen anything so ugly and misshapen as the baby elk, with its long, shambly legs, which hung down from the body like loose stilts. The head was large, old, and wrinkled, and it always drooped to one side. The skin lay in tucks and folds, as if the animal had put on a coat that had not been made for him. Always doleful and discontented, curiously enough he jumped up every time Karr appeared, as if glad to see him. The elk calf became less hopeful from day to day, did not grow any, and at last he could not even rise when he saw Karr. Then the dog jumped up into the crib to greet him, and thereupon a light kindled in the eyes of the poor creature, as if a cherished longing were fulfilled. After that Karr visited the elk calf every day, and spent many hours with him, licking his coat, playing and racing with him, till he taught him a little of everything a forest animal should know. It was remarkable that, from the time Karr began to visit the elk calf in his stall, the latter seemed more contented, and began to grow. After he was fairly started, he grew so rapidly that in a couple of weeks the stall could no longer hold him, and he had to be moved into a grove. When he had been in the grove 2 months, his legs were so long that he could step over the fence whenever he wished. Then the lord of the manor gave the game keeper permission to put up a higher fence, and to allow him more space. Here the elk lived for several years, and grew up into a strong and handsome animal. Karr kept him company as often as he could, but now it was no longer through pity, for a great friendship had sprung up between the two. The elk was always inclined to be melancholy, listless, and indifferent, but Karr knew how to make him playful and happy. Grayskin had lived for 5 summers on the game keeper's place, when his owner received a letter from a zoological garden abroad asking if the elk might be purchased. The master was pleased with the proposal, the game keeper was distressed, but had not the power to say no, so it was decided that the elk should be sold. Karr soon discovered what was in the air, and ran over to the elk to have a chat with him. The dog was very much distressed at the thought of losing his friend, but the elk took the matter calmly, and seemed neither glad nor sorry. "Do you think of letting them send you away without offering resistance?" asked Karr. "What good would it do to resist?" asked Grayskin. "I should prefer to remain where I am naturally, but if I've been sold, I shall have to go, of course." Karr looked at Grayskin and measured with his eyes. It was apparent that the elk was not yet full grown. He did not have the broad antlers, high hump, and long mane of the mature elk, but he certainly had strength enough to fight for his freedom. "One can see that he has been in captivity all his life," thought Karr, but said nothing. Karr left and did not return to the grove till long past midnight. By that time he knew Grayskin would be awake and eating his breakfast. "Of course you are doing right, Grayskin, in letting them take you away," remarked Karr, who appeared now to be calm and satisfied. "You will be a prisoner in a large park, and will have no responsibilities. It seems a pity that you must leave here without having seen the forest. You know your ancestors have a saying that the elk are one with the forest. But you haven't even been in a forest." Grayskin glanced up from the clover which he stood munching. "Indeed, I should love to see the forest, but how am I to get over the fence?" he said with his usual apathy. "Oh, that is difficult for one who has such short legs," said Karr. The elk glanced slyly at the dog, who jumped the fence many times a day, little as he was. He walked over to the fence, and with one spring he was on the other side, without knowing how it happened. Then Karr and Greyskin went into the forest. It was a beautiful moonlight night in late summer, but in among the trees it was dark, and the elk walked along slowly. "Perhaps we had better turn back," said Karr. "You who have never before tramped the wild forest might easily break your legs." Grayskin moved more rapidly and with more courage. Karr conducted the elk to a part of the forest where the pines grew so thickly that no wind could penetrate them. "It is here that your kind are in the habit of seeking shelter from cold and storm," said Karr. "Here they stand under the open skies all winter. But you will fare much better where you are going, for you will stand in a shed with a roof over your head like an ox." Grayskin made no comment, but stood quietly and drank in the strong, piny air. "Have you anything more to show me, or have I now seen the whole forest?" he asked. Then Karr went with him to a big marsh and showed him clods and quagmire. "Over this marsh the elk take flight when they are in peril," said Karr. "I don't know how they manage it, but large and heavy as they are, they can walk here without sinking. Of course you couldn't hold yourself up on such dangerous ground, but then there is no occasion for you to do so, for you will never be hounded by hunters." Grayskin made no retort, but with a leap he was out on the marsh, and happy when he felt how the clods rocked under him. He dashed across the marsh and came back again to Karr without having stepped into a mud hole. "Have we seen the whole forest now?" he asked. "No, not yet," said Karr. He next conducted the elk to the skirt of the forest, where fine oaks, lindens, and aspens grew. "Here your kind eat leaves and bark, which they consider the choicest of food. But you will probably get better fare abroad." Grayskin was astonished when he saw the enormous leaf trees spreading like a great canopy above him. He ate both oak leaves and aspen bark. "These taste deliciously bitter and good," he remarked. "Better than clover." "Then wasn't it well that you should taste them once?" said the dog. Thereupon he took the elk down to a little forest lake. The water was as smooth as a mirror, and reflected the shores, which were veiled in thin, light mists. When Grayskin saw the lake he stood entranced. "What is this, Karr?" he asked. It was the first time that he had seen a lake. "It's a large body of water a lake," said Karr. "Your people swim across it from shore to shore. One could hardly expect you to be familiar with this, but at least you should go in and take a swim." Karr himself plunged into the water for a swim. Grayskin stayed back on the shore for some little time, but finally followed. He grew breathless with delight as the cool water stole soothingly around his body. He wanted it over his back too, so he went farther out. Then he felt that the water could hold him up, and began to swim. He swam all around Karr, ducking and snorting, perfectly at home in the water. When they were on shore again, the dog asked if they had not better go home now. "It's a long time until morning," observed Grayskin, "so we can tramp around in the forest a little longer." They went again into the pine wood. Presently they came to an open glade, illuminated by the moonlight, where grass and flowers shimmered beneath the dew. Some large animals were grazing on this forest meadow an elk bull, several elk cows, and a number of elk calves. When Grayskin caught sight of them, he stopped short. He hardly glanced at the cows or the young ones, but stared at the old bull, which had broad antlers, with many taglets, a high hump, and a long haired fur piece hanging down from his throat. "What kind of an animal is that?" asked Grayskin in wonderment. "He is called Antler Crown.